Welcome to the Master of Unlocking Game of the Year podcast category podcasts, I guess, 2016. Today we are going to talk about the best worst final boss. I'm your host, Logan. To my left is Jason.
Hi, everybody. And to my left is...
my name is Caleb.
Oh, yeah. Eye contact, Caleb.
Okay.
Maybe I'll
what we were doing there.
Maybe next time I'll say, and across from me is Caleb, so we're not confused. I don't know.
We need an intro.
We need an intro. Yeah, maybe we'll get somebody to commission an intro for us. Who knows? Anyway, today our category is best worst final boss,
It's actually most best or worst final boss.
This is Caleb's idea for a category, so I'm going to let him explain it.
Go ahead, Caleb.
Okay, so the idea behind this category is we are finding either the best boss of the year or we are finding the worst boss of the year. Whichever one is more best.
Memorable?
Whichever one is more best or more worst.
And ideally, I guess it would be memorable, but it's like it can go either. So you're saying like it can go either side of the gamut. Like it's either like a positive 10 that was really great or a negative 10 that was really bad.
So if you put most bosses right in the middle of the spectrum, it's just whichever boss from the year is farthest away from that average boss.
Okay, whether it's bad or worse. Okay, that makes sense. So there are nominations. We'll just kind of rattle through them real quick. Battlefield 1, The Train. Dark Souls 3, The Abyss Watchers. Deus Ex, Viktor Marchenko. Division, Colonel Bliss, or aka the helicopter.
Yeah.
Doom, The Spider Mastermind. Quantum Break, which I'm referring to as the dumb guy in the giant room with red explosions. Also, Paul Serene was his name, but...
Littlefinger, right? That's Littlefinger?
Yes, that's
Littlefinger, yeah. Mm. Street Fighter 5, M. Bison, Fang, and Ken. Uncharted 4, Wraith. Tokyo Mirage Sessions, Medeus. StarCraft 2, Xanthos,
I think.
Pokemon Sun and Moon, Professor Kukui?
Sure. We'll go with it. I never say it, so...
Okay. Final Fantasy 15, Arena Highwind, or Ariana Highwind?
Ariana, I think.
Ariana Highwind, okay. Gears of War 4, The Hive Beast. Titanfall 2, all of the Titan encounters, or Mother Russia Bleeds, The Squat Boss.
And that is the boss from the level
3.
The Squat.
Yeah.
The Squat, yeah. We couldn't quite find the name for that person, but...
She's a big lady.
Big lady?
Yeah, who runs a gang.
Okay, so maybe we'll kind of talk about that.
Start there.
Yeah, let's start there. Let's talk
we can immediately cut this one.
Okay.
I wanted to give it a shout out because I think it's really creative. Mother Russia Bleeds is one of those great callbacks of beat 'em up that feels pretty retro, has a really great soundtrack. It's from Devolver, and you are near the end of a mission, whatever story level, whatever you want to call beat 'em up level. I think they do
stages.
call it levels.
Sure,
stage, probably right. You descend into a pool. It's gross because that game is gross and everything's all rotting out and the bricks are falling down. It's very cool. You start fighting some guys and then the music changes and she comes out and she's all, I'm gonna... She's dense, so you can't just beat up on her. She'll make a move and swat you away.
Kind of like the Blob.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, she's like a Juggernaut-esque blob, gross, big, girthy thing. And then when you get swatted away, you realize to the left of the screen, as the player, there is basically a combine that has rolled down the ramp of the pool, and it's got blades that are rotating at the end of it. So when you get hit away, it's a one-hit kill as you fly to the left of the screen too far, and there you go. Okay. Start over. And so you have to figure out a particular moveset and a particular combination of ways to throw her into those blades. And it's interesting because you've got a limited amount of time. We'll call it a combine. I don't know what it is.
It's a bunch of spinning blades, yeah.
Yeah, the blades are coming towards you. You're approaching the end of the pool. She'll jump out, and that's it for you.
Okay.
So you've got a limited amount of time to beat her before the blades pretty much just squish you in the deep end of the pool. And so eventually you figure out how to throw her in there. She gets chopped up. It's really gross. It's great. And so I wanted to acknowledge that because I thought it was a pretty unique idea for a 2D beat 'em up where some of that stuff has over the years been pretty standard. Yeah. They trap you and they make you think. and all the while the soundtrack is just bagging.
Yeah,
That's a good Devolver thing in general, is the soundtrack. We're just gonna go kind of all over the place on this list, but let's maybe do Titanfall 2 because I almost halfway want to disqualify this, but at the same time talk about it. I know the way that the Titanfall is set up is that after kind of each different area, well, not every area, but you end up kind of fighting one of these mercs in one of their personal Titans, and there's a lot of other Titans that are around, but these mercs are technically kind of in one of the more powerful Titans, or one that you're going to end up finding later. And the way that these are set up, there's actually kind of a reason to fight them. And that each one of them has its own special thing, and they have their own special intro even to them that makes these a little more unique than your typical first-person shooter. So I think it was worth mentioning, but at the same time, I would say at least the most memorable one for me was Viper, the air boss, but at the same time wasn't the best. It was almost kind of the worst, but it wasn't a final boss either. So that was kind of a weird way to talk about these. But
two things here. One, I don't like looking back. I had a lot of fun with Titanfall 2 and especially the bosses, but looking back, I don't remember any of them individually except for, like you said, Viper, which was just kind of an annoying fight more than anything.
Right.
And that's probably the reason I remember it, is because it was annoying. But I do want to give, the second thing I want to say is I do want to give Titanfall 2 props, because this is the first time I can remember where a first-person shooter has memorable boss fights. There's really not many of them that do that well, and Titanfall 2 actually pulled it off.
Yeah, they pulled it off.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that's the whole reason why we're talking about it right now, is they present those bosses in a really unique way. Kind of like, I was talking about like an old school beat 'em up, kind of like that. Like, you've got a personality. This is a character you're taking down. And I think that the different Titan classes make it really interesting too.
Right.
You're fighting different Titans. It's a different challenge. It's a different kind of encounter. And they have different, tagged artwork on them, and they're just there's a lot of personality there. You're right. I don't really remember them very much. They didn't really develop a ton of character, I guess, when you think about it. But I think the presentation is what I was excited about.
Presentation is done well, and it might be a step in the right direction for first-person shooters.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's go to another first-person shooter here. Talk about Battlefield 1: The Train.
Oh man!
Now, Caleb and I were the only ones who did this, but this train thing, I mean, there's this big giant train that comes through, and it's got a few different, large artillery weapons for World War I on it. And you're kind of in this little town area kind of thing, and this is on the outskirts of town. This train comes through, but you really have next to no way of really beating the train, because they don't give you a lot of weaponry to take on the train. So a lot of times what you end up doing is you'll get a gun, and you can fire off four pieces of ammo or whatever that comes with it, and then you got to run back into the town and try to find something else, while the whole time getting shot by random guys who are also coming out of the train and trying to get you, and they're also shooting heavy artillery at you. You'll end up going down, or at least getting in critical mode or whatever, just a ton of times, and it's really just kind of dumb because it's just a train.
They also, throughout this town, they have set up a bunch of turret stations that are pointed directly at the train. So you think, oh, okay, I can use a turret to take out this train. But the second that you get into a turret, that train turns, points at you, and it's basically a one-hit kill.
Right.
On every turret. So you just can't use the turrets that they've set up for you. And
I forgot about the turrets, because you just immediately die when you get on them.
Mind you, I was playing on easy, and it was still like almost instantly dead as soon as you did that. So it's just a struggle to you're running around frantically looking for more ammo, and then if you die, you have to do the whole thing over again. It's really frustrating. Really, really poor boss fight. Yeah,
and it was really the only true boss fight that was in Battlefield. I mean, there was I guess the Zeppelin thing, but it was even kind of staged, I guess, to say the least. Where this one had like a full life bar thing, and you had to take it down, and it took forever to take it down because you didn't have the artillery to really take it down. You were shooting a grenade launcher at it, or some weird mine things, and it just didn't. It was annoying. It took about 25-30 minutes to do, because you were trying to find weapons all across this town that you had to run back and then go back up to the other thing hopefully without running into other guys to try to take out as well.
That one needs to stay on this list for right now.
Yeah, that one sucks.
There's a couple on here that I think we can take off pretty quickly. I just wanted to mention them.
Right. So let's go down. Dark Souls 3 Abyss Watchers.
Actually, I want to go a little bit further.
Okay, that's fine.
I want to go to Pokemon Sun and Moon. Professor Kukui, I guess you'd say. It's so they did a really good job overall in Pokemon Sun and Moon in making. So each Pokemon, you guys aren't Pokemon players, so maybe I should go back to the beginning on this.
I know of Pokemon. I watched the show as a kid, but I never really played the game. I played a little bit of Pokemon Go, but that's not anything.
So every Pokemon has a type. You probably know that much.
Yeah, grass type, lightning, water. Yeah,
exactly. And
I did not know that much.
Oh, okay. It's a giant like rock paper scissors game. So if you have a water Pokemon, that Pokemon is probably going to beat the fire Pokemon because water puts out fire. So every Pokemon has one type to it, and then there are some Pokemon that have two types. So they have a subtype. So they can be like fire and fighting, for instance, something like that. And every Pokemon has some kind of combination of one or two of these types. And what that does is it really sets up some interesting, like, okay, I need to have a water type in my party so that if a fire comes up, I can take care of it instantly. But what if that fire type also has something that water is strong against? So it's this weird, intricate, and you're only allowed to carry 6 Pokemon with you. So you have to have a combination that can take care of everything. And what they did in Sun and Moon a lot was they put a lot of these dual type Pokemon in the quote unquote bosses, so that you'd have to think about, how do I take care of this guy, but still not sacrifice, later down the road, I'm going to come up against, this Pokemon, which I need, so it's a really cool way of like not just having the same party the entire game. You have to switch in and out as you need to. And especially with Professor Kukui, he had some really interesting type combinations that made it somewhat challenging. We can take that off the list. I just wanted to mention that Pokemon Sun and Moon is really good.
Oh, okay.
Also, Tokyo Mirage Sessions, Medeus. Now that I think about it, there are probably better bosses in Tokyo Mirage Sessions, but all of them pretty much have they set it up so like if you're just doing regular battles, they're pretty easy. You find what they're weak to, and then you do it over and over again until they're dead. But in the bosses, there's always a gimmick to it, and there's always something that makes you think a little bit more about the strategy. They added another layer from Medeus where every 3 turns, there's an ability that you can pick where you can be invincible for the next turn. So you want to save that up until you think that the boss is going to do his ultimate attack so that you don't take any damage from it. It's a lot of things going on and a lot of cool strategies. So I really like the boss fights in that game, but we can take it off this list.
I think it's great that his name is Medeus. Not but
just Medeus.
Knowing that game.
Okay. Well, Caleb, while you're on a roll, you want to talk about Dark Souls 3?
It's been a while since I've played the Abyss Watchers boss fight, so I apologize if the Dark Souls purists out there have corrections for me. But the reason that the Abyss Watchers is on this list as opposed to some of the other bosses, when you first go in, there's one enemy that you're just sword fighting one-on-one with. It's a really cool fight, and at some point there's enemies that start appearing, and the really cool part about it is you think like, oh, there's 2 more, all 3 of them are going to come and attack me, but if you have an odd number in there, they start attacking each other, which is really cool. So you want to make sure that you always have an odd number in there so that they're fighting each other and distracting each other while you're fighting the main guy. It's just a really cool concept. I really like that one.
So the push and pull of making sure that you're aggressive when you should be, not aggressive when you shouldn't be.
Exactly.
And managing the amount of them that are in there.
Right.
Interesting. Huh, that sounds cool.
Okay. Next one down, let's talk about Deus Ex.
You can take this one.
I remember this is a guy, you get introduced to him probably halfway through the game, Viktor Marchenko. He's pretty memorable. He's the big bald guy, if you've played it, that is heavily augmented. Heavily augmented. There are several ways that you can take him down. You can do it without... You can kill him, just plain as day, shoot your way through. You can do a couple of interesting weapon combinations and take him out non-lethally, which I really like. You can attach an EMP and then a grenade mine, combine those together, throw it, takes him out, puts him to sleep, game over. And then there's also, did you find the switch, his kill switch?
No.
Let's talk about that. So at the end of, we did an achievement guide on the channel for Deus Ex. One of the achievements is Marchenko's kill switch. And so in that last level, underneath a desk, you pull out some stuff, open up a box. It's his kill switch.
That's
radio-controlled kill switch. And so you walk in there and he's like, brother, blah, 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 blah. He's big, he's bad, he's angry, he's going to kill you.
Just kill him immediately?
Gone. Done. So there are several different ways to deal with Marchenko. I think he's a memorable character from games this year. And I think that that's a strength of that encounter. So many different ways to deal with him.
So I didn't have a lot of the augments that you need for the non-lethal version. You have to have like the MP stuff to take him down. So I went into this fight, wasn't quite sure what to do. I failed like 3 or 4 times, but then I started searching the room, and I found some stuff that was interesting. So I I did upgrade my hacking ability. So I upgraded I hacked the turrets so that they would attack him. And when I did that, he was following me. So he came in, the turrets would start attacking him, but they weren't doing enough damage before he just blew them up.
Right.
So restart the fight. I'm just trying to think of ways to do this. And, I just started crafting. I think I was crafting them. I might have just had a bunch of EMP mines, which kind of stunned him for a couple of seconds. It didn't do a ton, but he kind of stumbled a little bit. So then I went back, hacked the turret, and then just kept throwing EMP mines under him he would get stunned. The turret's just chipping him down. He gets stunned again, and the turret. It's the reason I love that boss fight so much is there's just so many options on how to take him down. There are a ton of options.
Yep.
Okay, next one down, The Division, Colonel Bliss.
Oh man, this sucked.
So, yeah, Jason and I played a little bit of Division, but we never finished it. So Caleb, knock yourself out on this.
Yeah, why in every military shooter does the final boss have to be a helicopter? Why is that a thing?
I don't know. I think that, and it goes back to kind of what we're talking about with Titanfall, is that in a military shooter, I mean, how do you make a human being be more powerful unless you start going sci-fi?
Yeah. And
that's kind of, I guess, where they have to go with that. Is they have to say, okay, well, they're inside of a machine, so it's either a tank, a helicopter, a fighter jet. I don't know.
That seems pretty vanilla to me, though. I mean, I know the fight was annoying, but it seems like its non-strength is like it's so mundane. A helicopter?
Yes. Yeah.
Is that why it's on this list?
Yes, it's because it's a helicopter. It's because it does an insane amount of damage, and there's an infinite spawn of regular dudes that just keep coming at you the entire time.
Great.
Yeah, which is always the best way to up the difficulty in your game. Just add infinite spawns.
Yep. Speaking of, why don't we go into Quantum Break?
Oh man,
this is all you guys.
Oh god. So the very end of Quantum Break, you're going up against Paul Serene, and he's standing at the top in this warehouse, and it's basically a giant square. He's at one end of the square, and right in the middle, and you can kind of run around either to the right or to the left, and he does this weird thing. I'm not even sure what it is, but it sends out this red blast, and it basically covers 3/4 of the area of the room that you're in, except for one corner. So you just have to kind of you start in one corner, and then he'll do his attack, and then you have to run over to the other corner so that it doesn't get you. And then when he does that, enemies start coming out after you. So then they will start coming out at you on either the left side or the right side, depending on which side you went down. and you kind of got to take those guys out. And then after he does his attack, he's a little vulnerable for a second because he's worn out. And then you can go and shoot him. I think you got to do it, 3 or 4 times?
Yeah.
But each
So
time...
probably 3. It's always 3.
It's
right?
always 3, yeah. But the problem is the guys that they send out at you, they're typically not. There's maybe 2 or 3 grunts, and then there's 2.
So there's minions. Sorry to interrupt you.
Well, yeah, there's they're soldier type of guys, and then there's 2 or 3 like shotgun wielding, heavily armored guys that you can't really just take out easily. So then he might recover from his attack thing, but when you're trying to get over there, and then he does his attack again while you're trying to fight off these other guys who are now shooting you with shotguns, and you can barely take them out because you're running out of ammo. And the only way to get more ammo is to go up closer to him where the ammo is. It's really a mess.
So what it devolves down into, because it, there's an infinite spawn of guys and you're trying to take them all out at the same time, but he's still doing his red blob nonsense. The safest way to do this boss fight is literally to run in circles around the room, and then when he throws down his attacks, it will kill the infinite spawns. Problem with that is it makes the fight last like half an hour.
Right.
So you're just running in circles for like half an hour, and it's so bad.
So that one stays.
That one has to
It
stay.
was really bad. I gotta say that game wasn't as bad as people say it is, but that final boss fight left such a sour taste in my mouth that no wonder people reviewed it so badly. I mean, there was, some people complained that the game, it was just like a straight cover shooter. You could use the time mechanics in a way that made it more interesting, and that's what I did, and I had a good time with it up until that final boss. And I even
save it for the top 10, Logan.
We didn't even we didn't even class it. We didn't even count it.
That's why it deserves a little bit of redemption here.
This is my one time to talk about Quantum Break for the year, as someone who bought it and needs at least 2 minutes to complain about it. But yeah, I even like the stupid live TV stuff with it. That was actually
no.
I know
No. You're just wrong.
I didn't think it was that bad. They were
That's a Remedy thing, right?
Yeah.
They were 20-minute things. I didn't think they were that bad.
They were very poorly acted. Like, very poorly acted.
I didn't say they were greatly acted.
On purpose?
No, it's just there was nobody really. And the thing is, like, the 2 guys who were legitimate actors that they had for the game were not in those live TV sections.
Oh, yeah. The kid from Prison Break is in that. Sorry. I remember one face that I recognize out of the live action stuff.
Yeah, it was like they had two
He's a bad actor. So.
Yeah, they had 2 legitimate actors in it, and then they maybe did, I would say maybe 10 minutes of actual work of live acting, and then it was all these sub-characters.
Which some people would say that game has, one of the best TV shows of all time. There's 2 characters from The Wire. Carcetti, or Littlefinger, is in The Wire, and then, I can't remember his name. The African-American guy. He's also
from Fringe.
Oh, is he in Fringe too?
He's in Fringe. I know you're talking about.
Oh, yeah. And he's in it a lot, actually. Yeah. He's kind of one of the main bad guy. And he actually did okay. It was the guy, the weird computer hacker guy.
Yes,
he was terrible.
So that stays. You guys
okay. So back to bosses. Let's not have 5 hours of
Quantum Break. All right. So yeah, that stays as a bad game.
There's a couple more that I can cross off here quickly too. Street Fighter we can cross off. It's just at the end of that game, it's just a gauntlet of M. Bison, Fong, and Ken are the last 3 fights, and they're all just a huge pain in the ass just because of the matchups that they force you to use. It's just really bad, but not bad enough to stay on this list.
Okay.
Final Fantasy 15, we can take that off too.
And if you don't mind, let's try to keep that vague because Jason and I haven't finished that one yet.
Sure, yeah, and that's a boss that's kind of partway into the game. It's not the final boss or anything like that, but it's the one of 2 good fights in the entire game for me. I didn't like the battle system much at all, but that one was fun. There's one more towards the end of the game that's a lot of fun too, but. That fight kind of redeemed that battle system just a little bit for me, so I wanted to mention it here.
Okay, that's good.
Okay.
We can also take Gears off the list. It's a bad final boss, but I won't get into it too much because I know you guys haven't done it yet.
We're close. We're just about ready to start Act 5, but
it's just bad and boring, and nothing that you like about Gears is part of that boss fight. So.
But a strange formula I'm hearing as we talk about this is that it's such a major departure during these encounters from the core gameplay.
Right. Yeah,
which is always been annoying. That's
it's like here, play 90% of the game this way, and then
do a weird thing.
Do this one last weird thing.
Speaking of which, have we talked about Uncharted?
We were kind of saving that for the end, I think.
Go ahead, Caleb. Do you have anything else you want to cross off or anything else?
I think if you guys are okay with it, I think we can cross Doom off the list too.
We haven't talked about Doom.
It's fairly, actually, I mean, at least was on that point, it's pretty much the game. There is more thinking to be done. There's more strafing and dodging and jumping to be done. You really do have to think about that encounter, but at its core, you are still shooting it, whether it be in a particular spot or at a particular time.
Right.
It's still the core mechanic of Doom, right? It's okay. I don't have a huge problem with it. Do you guys have a problem with it?
No, if we're on the spectrum of that, I would actually probably put it right in the middle.
Yeah, that's
of like an average. So it's not far to the best. It's not far to the worst. It's somewhere in the middle for me.
Yeah, sure.
I like that. I like that boss fight as part of that game. But you're right. It's more towards the middle, so we can cross it off of this category.
Okay.
All right. Uncharted 4. Rafe. We
all finished that.
We all did. It was just one big giant QuickTime event inside of a burning building.
Was there I remember, was there a left and right mechanic to that as far as dodging and parrying and countering between circle, maybe square? Yes,
all on QTEs.
But it was all QTE based.
So none of that was controlled with your left analog stick?
I don't believe so.
I think I'm more down on Uncharted 4 than a lot of people, but that was the nail in the coffin for me.
The cherry on top for you?
Yeah.
I guess that goes
being
back...
positive, cherry on top, not nail in the coffin.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Positive negativity.
and again, I think that goes back to what we were talking about with the Division of how do you make a human character be a final boss without him being overpowerful or something like that. And I guess this was their answer to that. It just didn't click for me.
At least it was easy.
That's true. It was
you got
easy.
that going for it.
I don't think it's as bad maybe as you guys feel it is. I know that that we just talked about this. It's a gameplay mechanic that's not in the game the whole time, and then it introduced, hey, here's a new game. This is what you're going to do. This thing you've not done this whole time. So I understand that.
But in that, actually, there was a few spots in the game where you actually did do that with...
oh, really?
What's her name? The other Merc.
The one that's going to be in the new game.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, I forgot her name.
The one that knew Sully.
Yeah.
That had a connection to...
Great character when you can't remember their name.
Character of the year, perhaps?
Yeah, it's been 7-8 months since that came out.
Yeah, that's true.
So what I want to say about that real quick is I think that the conversation that he has with Nathan and the kind of back and forth there where they both realize like it's you or me.
Yeah.
I think there is some elegance in there.
Yeah.
I think that they could have they treated that Naughty Dog's strength and weakness, right? Strength and storytelling. And they treated that as like an epic cinematic end that turns into this very rigid, clunky piece of gameplay.
Yeah, I think it was great.
But in their minds, they're probably storyboarding it, and they're like, this is going to be great.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They never, to me at least, they've never really landed an ending. They do such a great job for like 95% of their games, and then they never nail the ending. But maybe that's just a feeling that I have.
We'll talk about that in the Game of the Year stuff, because I've got some thoughts on that too. Yep. So I'm good with taking Uncharted 4 off of this and kind of narrating it down. The only other one we had on this list we haven't talked about is the StarCraft 2.
Oh, so StarCraft 2, the Nova Covert Ops mission packs came out this year, and at the end of that is a boss called Xanthos. Do you guys know like how StarCraft plays out at all?
No idea. I know nothing about StarCraft.
You basically, in the multiplayer at least, you kind of build a base, and then there's another person on the other side of the map that's building a base, and you're sending enemies back and forth, trying to take over their base. That's it in a nutshell. So you're building units, you're building buildings that can produce units so that you can send them out to the field. And the reason that Xanthos is so cool is because it's this unstoppable warship. It just keeps coming at your base, and there's very little you can do about it. You can hold it off, but you can't do any damage to it. So when it takes enough damage, it goes back to its base and docks and restores its shield. And that's the only time you can damage this thing, is when it's restoring its shield in its own base. So not only do you have to propel it away from your base when it's trying to advance on you, but you have to break into the very back of the enemy base just so you can do damage to this thing when it's restoring its shield. So it's a constant struggle of, okay, do I send these units to defend, or do I just sacrifice some of my buildings, hoping that I can do enough damage so that he goes back, and then I have enough to make a push at him. It's really well done. That's a really cool moment in StarCraft.
So let me ask you, now that we've got pretty much bad, good, bad, good. Mm-hmm. So Caleb, as the head chieftain of this category,
Who has played all of these?
I want to get your guys' opinions. Out of these, what, 5 that we have left? 6? Mm-hmm. What do you guys pick?
I as someone who didn't play Deus Ex, Division, or StarCraft, I'm more inclined, I guess, if I'm picking my worst end of the spectrum, it's Quantum Break. Battlefield is second, close behind. I'm good with Uncharted 4 coming off the list.
I was just gonna ask that.
And but at the same time, from what you described, StarCraft sounds interesting. The Division sounds like it sucks, but it also sounds like it's typical of a lot of other games.
You're right. It's pretty boring. So
it's just boring. It may not be the worst, but yeah. So and as I say, I can't speak to Deus Ex as much as it sounds like there's some unique ways to do it, which is kind of a cool thought too, especially with the kill switch thing. I think that's a unique piece that goes in there. So I'm kind of good with any of these at this point. Do you guys feel pretty strongly any way towards any others?
I think that I didn't play Quantum Break and you guys did, but that sounds like a crap show.
It really is.
It was really, really bad.
It's kind of a crap show on top of a mediocre game, though. So at least my expectations going into the final boss weren't, oh, this is going to be epic.
Like, the game was already, like, as to say, if I'm giving it a rating out of 10, the game was already like a 6.5 or a 7, and it moved it down to a 4.
Yeah.
Wow. I feel good about Victor, but
that would be my pick at this point.
Really?
Is Victor, just because
over Xanthos?
Yes, just because of the, you probably have 30 options on how you're going to take down Victor.
Yeah.
At least. And it just depends on, even if you spec'd in a completely different way, they left all that open. And especially after the crappy boss fights in the last Deus Ex game where they were just bullet sponges you had to shoot. And for them to turn that on its head and make a really good boss fight that fits in with the rest of the game, I think that's really cool.
So Logan, do you feel, I think Caleb and I enjoyed Deus Ex a lot. Do you feel strongly enough about Quantum Break or Battlefield that it is worse than the quality of Victor?
I would say Battlefield, no.
Category.
Battlefield, no. Quantum Break, maybe. And I would say that because Caleb has played both, I'm going to leave that as a tiebreaker for Caleb on both. So we have a best and a worst, essentially. It's just which one was more best or worst.
But I think let's put a positive spin on this, guys.
Put a positive spin. So best final boss.
What a refreshing thought on the internet.
Best boss.
That works. So best Deus Ex, Victor Marchenko is the master of unlocking best boss.
Best or worst, most best or worst final boss of 2016.
All right.
Keyword best.
Keyword best. Most best or / worst. Okay. I'm glad we all agree to that.
3 idiots talking into a
That's pretty much it. So, all right. Thank you for checking out this category of most best, worst final boss. Leave us a comment on which one you think is the most best or worst, or if we're just completely insane for coming up with this category. And we'll see you in the next podcast.